So what'd you think of the Spider-Man movie?
Badass. Hey everyone, we are the Samurai Reviews. We are your hosts. My name is Josh. We have Brett. Then we have Jonathan. This review video is brought to you by Cousin Cam Production.
And Little Debbie, if you're fat, go get you a snack. Little Debbie.
Today we are going to review
Spider-Man Far From Home.
further announcements. We will be splitting or separating our reviews and our IMDb reaction part of this vid. So they'll be separate. Yeah, and then we're just going to post the IMDb reaction reviews just a few days. Yeah, separately just a few days after.
This will help us get the review out faster for you guys, as well as kind of, split up your time so you're not spending an hour watching this stuff.
Off that point, we will also be leaving timestamps in the description below, so you can always skip around if you just want to hear us talk about the non-spoilers, or if you want to skip to the spoilers part and hear us kind of talk about our discussion on the spoilers. We kind of changed up that part as well. Instead of giving you
We're not just going to run
just
through
the whole story.
script.
We made it better for you guys to kind
you're
of
welcome.
listen to
Selfish. Just thank us by subscribing and liking down below.
Yes. And that's how you can
It's the least you can do.
and that's how you can support our channel
Whoa.
and keep us going so we can continue to bring these great reviews.
We asked you guys questions. That's the feedback we got back. So these are the steps we're taking to help y'all out and to meet your expectations of us.
We always want to better ourselves.
Make sure you share with your friends, all that. Comment down below any other suggestions you have. Obviously, we take them to heart and try and change when you do have them. So go ahead, put them down below. Also, don't forget our Instagram. That's a great way to stay up to date on what videos we're posting and when and stuff like that. Samurai Reviews 0.
Just gonna.
Whoa!
Spider-Man Far From Home, our review. We're going to start with our individual ratings, and then we're going to add that together up to make an overall rating of our Samurai review.
So for me, this movie, I'm gonna give it an 8.5. Definitely really enjoyed it. The great things for me, the acting was amazing. The cinematography I really enjoyed. Just the visuals with the fight scenes and Mysterio were really cool. Definitely on the edge of your seat. You don't really know what's gonna happen. I think they really did the comics and other iterations of Spider-Man justice in this version. And as I was saying with the acting, like Jake Gyllenhaal did a great job with that. So that's the best parts. I love Tony Stark. I love Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. And so his presence in this movie is definitely felt a lot, which can be a good or a bad thing depending on how you feel about him. At first, for Spider-Man, I didn't even really like it, even though I liked Tony. But as I've accepted the MCU Spider-Man to be connected to Tony, I definitely think it was okay and I liked it in this movie. But, in next movies, probably cut more from that, which I think they will. And then the first act was kind of slow paced, didn't really pick up too well. And I think lots of the jokes and stuff for it didn't land, at least for me, especially in the first high school scene that they had in the movie. I just didn't like it. So that was the bad. But for all that together, 8.5 for me.
And I just want to point out at the end of his 8.5 from him. I was not expecting it. I really was expecting a really low rating from him. He's very much a fan of the older trilogies. But getting an 8.5 from him is I was surprised, and it's actually kind of impressive. So yeah, but that brings me to my review. I also think it was an 8.5.
What? Not a 10?
Okay, I really wanted to give it a 10. To be honest, I was going out of this and I was like, this is a 10. But obviously I'm hella biased and I had to really think critically. I thought critically for a second. I was like, look, this movie had flaws, but it was a really good movie. A very, very respectable Spider-Man movie. And just a superhero movie in general. It has a compelling story as well as an excellent physical and emotional story that they throw in there, especially relating to Spider-Man. All the actors did amazing. Honestly, I could have used some more Ned because I love my boy Ned. But also the writing was just terrific. I think they wrote in their characters well. They didn't force anyone in. They didn't shorthand anybody. I thought it was really well done. Specifically, Gyllenhaal, like you said, did great. His Mysterio was almost perfect. Didn't like him as much as Vulture in Homecoming, but still right up there with the best MCU villains so far. His motivations and his character really fit the kind of the comic version of him that some people kind of love. I thought they did him justice. They of course change a little things here and there to his environment, but they keep the core of the character true to form. And that's kind of what you look for in MCU movies. And I think that's where people kind of rate things lower than they should or higher than they should, is when they don't realize that it's okay if it's a different story. If they did the same story over and over again, that's going to be repetitive and you're just going to be bored by that. But so you got to change the surrounding situations of the character. But the key important part where you can overdo that is you just got to keep the core of the character the same. And I think this movie is a perfect example of what they did, or of doing that well. Yeah, finally, this is a great movie. And if you love anything from action to comic movies to the TV show Freaks and Geeks, this is right up your alley. Definitely watch the movie. 8.5.
It's a good movie. You should definitely watch it. I totally thought it was going to be of a shorter rant than that.
Because I already kind of looked at some IMDb's and they're like, this isn't Spider-Man from the comics. And it's like, yeah, no shit. That would be boring as You've already read that story. They're trying to show you something new.
I also kind of agree with that too. With those comics were written how many years ago? Yeah. It's written at a certain period of time, with different things going on. Technology wise, resources. It wasn't thought out in the comic books as it is now on the big screen. So I totally agree that they should change it up like they did with MJ. Yeah. I think they did a great job with switching up with MJ.
This is my favorite MJ ever.
Yeah, I'm glad that they switched.
That's why you gave it a 10, Josh, right?
Well, let me get to that first. But
I also want to point out X-Men Dark Phoenix is a one that does bad when it clings too hard to the comics, where it doesn't make sense, like the age where everyone's old. Just change it, man. Just change it up. We get it. You have to change it to fit the character, the actors.
So even Ned, like you said, we wish we would have had Harry as his best friend. But I mean, we love Ned.
I was in Homecoming. I was really upset when it was Ned, and I was like, what the hell? Where's Harry? But he does such a good job.
Yeah, he does a great job.
To the story.
And it kind of fits that, friendship, relationship, kind of geek squad that we kind of see nowadays with friendships. So my rating is going to be a 7.5. 7.5, as high as the 7.5 is. Kind of just restating what Brett said. Kind of not as good as Homecoming Spider-Man. I thought Homecoming Spider-Man was a solid 8. It was great. It was a good movie. I thought the first one had a better story overall, kind of following the life of Peter Parker becoming Spider-Man, while this one had more of a half story of Spider-Man becoming Spider-Man. The story kind of just started in the second act than in the first act.
So the way we kind of decided to summarize it is, first movie is Peter Parker. No, first one is what is Spider-Man to Peter Parker? This one is what is Spider-Man to the world?
I like the first story a little bit better. It was more relatable to me. It was more down to earth, and better coming of age kind of a story. Mm-hmm. This one was a weird coming of age story to me.
It was a little more of a hybrid coming of age. The other one was like a true to form coming of age, and this one was kind of a it was you can't really put a finger on it. It's kind of a lot.
And that's where I have the problem with. Totally agree with these three. Mysterio, Jake Gyllenhaal. Oh my gosh. I loved every single scene, every single second he was on the screen.
I forgot he was an actor.
As a
I was like, oh, that's Mysterio.
At first, I was actually I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna like this guy as a villain. Yeah. I told you because I loved him so much as a good guy.
Just really good. I don't even know how to describe how great he is in this movie. It just pushed that movie overall, kind of as the Vulture did in the first one with Homecoming. Visuals were awesome. Obviously, you need that for Mysterio's character. So I felt that they did try to push too many jokes in this one compared to the first one. The first one kind of had a little bit of like a good pacing with their jokes. This one was all like, oh, let's try to throw in a joke on this one and this part of the scene. You're like, that really didn't fit, but okay.
I didn't feel that way, but I know you felt that way too.
Yeah, not as much as you, I don't think, Josh.
It was awkward at points, but I'm just all like, I guess that's awkward because it fits Peter's character, but
the kind of
it
comedy they
wasn't
do
really.
in this, the kind of comedy they do in this is not normal comedy. It's a very quirky kind of comedy. It's like if you've seen the show New Girl, like I said before, it's directed by the Freaks and Geeks guy, or he's a writer or something. He's part of the production. And there's even in Freaks and Geeks actor, the teacher. So it's very much like Freaks and Geeks. If you liked that kind of comedy, this is that kind of comedy. But there's a lot of people that don't. So it's kind of like, I understand where if you don't connect with it.
And for me, I like some of them hit, lots of them hit, but there was also, like I said, the first part and a couple near the end that were just kind of put in there that I'm like, nope.
A lot more characters that were kind of thrown into this movie that were focused a little bit more, and were taking away that story of Spider-Man that I wanted to see and touched on. Kind of made it a little bit more of a, it's this story, but it's also like this story.
I get what you're saying.
Instead of the first one where it was like, oh, this is the story. This is it. Definitely one of the top 3 villains of the MCU. I got the Vulture, Thanos, and Mysterio.
I can't think of one right now that's better than Mysterio. He's definitely top 5.
Loki. If he's a villain.
Yeah.
Oh,
If he's a
you
villain.
know,
I don't think
you're
he's a
right.
natural
I did
villain.
like
I don't
him.
think he's a natural
He's like,
villain. though.
okay.
He goes both ways.
Avengers he is, basically.
He's like an anti-villain.
But he was working under Thanos.
He's
is
an
what we
anti-villain.
Loki's in its own good category. He's the only one that's just right there, number 1.
I thought Hela was pretty good, but I don't think she was better than Mysterio. I like Red. I think Red Skull's right behind Hela, but
Yeah.
I don't think he's better than Mysterio either.
Oh yeah, from the
From Thor Ragnarok.
What about Killmonger
Oh, come on.
from Black Panther?
Oh, I liked Killmonger better than Hela. I liked Mysterio better than Killmonger though.
Yeah, I did like Mysterio better than Killmonger. There's a person out there that will disagree with me.
That's fine. I think Killmonger's good, and I think he's up there. And I get if you relate to him more. I feel like, the biggest. I think they're both very good, but the difference is who do you relate to more. And for me, it's. I guess I don't relate to Mysterio, but I guess I understand it.
Man, why does the 2 Spider-Man movies have like the best villains?
Spider-Man has the best villains. That's why.
Yeah, there's no. Okay.
I agree. He's number 3.
Top 3.
Yep.
Top 3.
So that brings us out to a Samurai Review rating of 8.2.
Spoiler time.
Spoilers.
Bum, 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 bum.
Spoilers.
It's the spoilers.
This one's for Justin. Spoilers. For spoilers, we're going to do, since it was above a 5, there's probably a little more good than there is bad. So we're going to start off with, our least favorite scenes, scenes that stuck out to us as bad, and then we'll do pretty much that, but for good, and our favorite scenes.
Let's see. The things I disliked was the first act. It was very mellow high school drama type thing. It wasn't like a high school drama that you would get from Booksmart, which was good high school drama. This one was like a really mellowed down.
Like in that, you couldn't wait to see what happened. In this, you're just kind of like,
okay, let's move
fun,
on.
But I'm here to see Spider-Man.
Another dislike in the movie was the part when they went to the Netherlands, where Peter kind of wakes up in a jail, and then there's these Netherlands people, and he escapes out of the jail, and then he calls Happy.
And it takes about 30 seconds, but
I felt it took forever.
I know, yeah.
That was one where it took a real dip. And I was all like, okay, let's get back into it, because that's
just there to be fun.
That was like right after we saw this amazing scene, and then it just went, and then it picked right back up again. But it was just that.
It's like they took a breath.
It was just that dip,
and they're like, okay, have fun scene, and it's about how
don't need that.
But it didn't add anything but being funny.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree.
There was no story that pushed it along.
Yeah.
Like within John Wick 3, the part where he's at the tent and he like chops his finger off and then gives it to the thing, there was actually a story meeting
kind of,
behind it, which was awesome. It was a nice breather, and then we got back into the fighting.
You could take this scene in Spider-Man out and it would change nothing.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. Both of those points. The first point you mentioned, where it was very slow in the beginning, is the thing I noticed most, and I probably knocked it down a whole point. It was very slow at the beginning, and it was fun. Like, I was very interested because I'm into the characters, but especially if you're new and this is the first time seeing like him on screen, you're very like, why do I care? One thing where this actually, I was coming out thinking 9, and then you actually brought it up. And I was like, you know what? I actually didn't like that. That's gonna have to knock down another half a point. Is all the villains are connected to Tony in the Spider-Man universe. Like, these villains should be Spider-Man villains, and I feel like they made them in a way where it's like, if Tony doesn't exist, these villains also don't exist. And I just want a Spider-Man villain. I don't want a Tony villain that Spider-Man takes care of. I want a villain that Spider-Man takes care of. And it's just kind of shorthands the character of Spider-Man when you make everything revolve around Tony. It just kind of feels like Spider-Man is just cleaning up the bits and pieces of Tony's mess, and that made sense for the first movie, where they're setting up, Tony going, and then him trying to,
that relationship between the two.
Yeah, and that's fun
for
the
sure,
first.
because that gives a little bit more of an impact in Endgame as well.
Yeah, this is the second movie. Let's have Spider-Man have a moment that stands out away from Tony Stark.
It's definitely their best option and their best way to kind of introduce this Mysterio character.
The universe. I just really want to just see a movie where Spider-Man doesn't have to talk about other heroes.
Yep. Basically, kind of the same thing with the first part, the pacing, and more of the jokes. I guess I'll mention. That first scene in the high school, I really didn't like. Not to the point I was disgusted by it by any means, but I was just kind of sitting there, and there was audience members laughing, and I was just like.
I think that's one of those scenes. It's a lot like the recording that he does in the beginning of Homecoming.
Yes.
And if you didn't like that, then you're not gonna like this.
Yep, that's exactly.
I liked it, so it was a nice way for them to exposit to people who haven't seen Endgame what has happened and what they're dealing with.
Again, like I was saying with the Tony parts, it's hard for me because I really do love Tony Stark, and he is my favorite character in the MCU, and I do think he deserves to have the credit for it. But I also understand, and I didn't like the Spider-Man in Homecoming because of that reason too, where it's a Tony, an Iron Man Spider-Man and not a Spider-Man Spider-Man. But I've come to accept that now, and I think it was okay. It was used a little bit too much, but I didn't have as much of an issue with it as Brett did. Obviously, it's because I love Tony Stark, though. If I didn't like him as much, if I replaced that with Cap, if Cap was
I like that better, actually.
I'm not as big of a Cap fan, so I would have the exact same feeling as Brett right now. I'd be like,
enjoy your retirement.
Cap's dead, so let's just move on from him.
He's retired.
Talking about those jokes, one of the dislikes, one that they kept kind of going back to it, was the Peter Tingle, and I was just like, okay,
it
enough.
Was funny the first time they mentioned it.
I feel like we hashed out all the dislikes and bad ones.
I mean, that's literally all the bads. If you want to start with the good now.
Yeah, definitely. Like I was saying before, the acting and all of that is amazing. Some of my favorite scenes, there's honestly a lot. I'll just group them here. Any of the fight scenes between Spider-Man and Mysterio were amazing. They kept you on your toes. You didn't really know what was going on, and they really did have that.
I literally wrote that down. Had me on my toes.
Oh, they had me on the edge of my seat.
Melania Trump over here plagiarizing.
I didn't read it.
Now I know how Michelle felt.
But yeah, they're really cool to see, and the visuals are amazing, which you obviously need for a Mysterio movie. And then any of the scenes with Happy were pretty great. I especially love the jet scene, the first one that Peter is on with them. He gives him the speech of again, Peter Parker the whole time he's I'm trying to be
living in Tony's shadow.
Yeah, trying to be Tony and everything, and Happy says you're not gonna be Tony. Even Tony can't live up to Tony. And after that he goes over and he starts making his own Spider-Man thing.
Before that he was like, what are you gonna do about it?
And then he starts making his own stuff for the Spider-Man, which is cool because that's what Spider-Man does. It's not Tony that does it. It's Spider-Man makes his own stuff. So you got to see that, but it also threw it back to Tony with his like 3D imaging thing in front of him that he was going through, and then
the way he was working on
and Happy throws on some AC/DC. Again, a nod to Tony, which I loved. I
love Led Zeppelin.
And so that was one of my favorite scenes.
I want to point out, like, the happy scenes with Spider-Man was one of the things I was not expecting to like as much as I did. You could definitely see their relationship and see the benefit it has to the story. I really liked it. I agree.
The Peter and MJ scenes were really good in this one. I enjoyed them a lot. I definitely enjoyed their relationship more than the, what's her name? Liz and Peter in the first movie in this one.
Yeah. That was because there was no like, oh, this is going to last, like you knew it wasn't going to last, so you weren't as invested.
But I did really enjoy those, especially the opera scene in this. I thought was really great. You got to really feel for Peter and him knowing he has to go do, save the world, but he really wants to just hang out with, this crush he's got. And so that was a really cool scene, and they definitely got great chemistry together. Oh, J.K. Simmons coming back to reprise his role. Yes, that was a huge opener. I kind of suspected it, so that was cool.
Yeah, no, it was nice. It was a very nice little addition. She's like, yeah.
Oh, and then there was a reveal by him, which is, I don't know if I like this. I'll have to see what they do with it. Right. But where he's like, Peter Parker gets revealed that he's Spider-Man. Yeah. And they show a picture of Peter Parker on like this whole news broadcast thing. So that's interesting.
And it ends with him going like, what the? And then which is kind of how they've ended the last one too. And I actually really like that. There's always something at the end of these movies where I'm like, I was not expecting that.
Do you think that Mysterio is still alive or dead?
He better be. I'm going to be mad if he's not. And they're setting up the Sinister Six, and he's an original Sinister Six member. He needs to be a part of it.
Yeah.
My favorite part, I also agree, the Mysterio illusions and the fighting with Spider-Man visually was beautiful as well as confusing all at the same time. And it was great. It really kept you on your toes. And it was kind of like going through it, and you were like, you really didn't know what to expect. You didn't know. I mean, you knew it was all fake because it was an illusion, but you didn't know what part was going to react to Spider-Man or what Spider-Man was going to react to in it. You're not going to get the normal villain versus hero fight scene because that's not Mysterio's style. He's actually not formidable at fighting at all. It's all illusion magic with him. So that's exactly what I went into this movie wanting, and I was dead worried that they were not going to do it. But I'm very satisfied with what they did with Mysterio.
That, and we're very satisfied that there are no multi-universes.
Yes, no multiverses. That's not a thing in this, or as far as we know, I guess. But yeah, I was very satisfied with that too because that would have been messy.
Yeah, that would have been very messy, which I'm glad they did.
They already have a timeline to fix. They don't need a multiverse to do too.
They've already destroyed doing kind of like a multiverse on the DC side of things with like their TV shows, and like it's already bad as it is.
They're juggling enough chainsaws. You don't need to throw in fire. Yeah. I also agree, MJ and Peter's relationship, and it's something that they have not been able to nail down in much of anything except for PS4 video.
Yeah, it's not in PS4.
And even that one was kind of lacking. This one really gives MJ that kind of foothold in a relationship that makes her feel more than just a piece of Peter Parker, but actually like a greater part of the story. And they really, fill out her character. There's real gravity and depth to her character and her decisions and her actions. There's good subtlety with her kind of like hiding her feelings, but not too much to where it's like she wouldn't say that. It was very true to the character. It was also very different though.
It was relatable, and that's why it's our favorite.
And I think that's as good as a relationship gets in a superhero movie. I don't think it can get much better than that.
Obviously, Mysterio was my favorite parts of it. Like I said, every second, every scene, everything that he was in, when he was playing innocent with Peter Parker all the way through, and then him with his group of villains kind of like throwing his flashback of how he even became a villain. Yeah. To like,
it was a good way of expositing that info.
And I love how he even runs that whole crew, and like how he like takes charge, and he's all like, no, I want it this way. You're gonna do that, and we're gonna do it. Like, I have a vision like this, So you're gonna write that for me. You're gonna do this for
Basically
me.
plays
And I'm just
J.J.
all like,
Abrams.
I'm just like, dude,
"More
this is
explosion."
great. How he dies, I thought that was a clever way. I know you have problems with it, but I actually really enjoyed it just because he said he has plans for his plans, and I'm all like, he obviously has to because he's a regular, human being, so he has to have plans behind plans behind plans, and he's not a dumb guy. So I feel like his death was like the best way Mysterio could go, but I know he wasn't dead.
My problem isn't with the fact, like, how he died. It's the fact that the way Spider-Man interacted with him as he was dying.
Oh, as he was dying?
Yeah, it was more like, I feel like Spider-Man, and they did a really good job of this in the first movie, especially when Vulture was about to explode, and he's like, no, stop, and he's like holding him back. And it's just one of those moments where, like, I wanted Peter to maybe, like, try and hold his wound and be like, no,
yeah, just kind of let him die.
Yeah, he just kind of was like, looked at him, and then he was like, is he dead? And he was sad about it, and that's better than other movies where he's just like,
the first original like three ones where
when Goblin dies and he's like, well, I gotta carry him to the house. When Doc Ock is like, I'll destroy it, and he's like, oh yeah, go do that, I'm gonna take Mary Jane. Like, or like when Eddie jumped into the Venom when he threw the bomb and he was like, no. Stuff like that. So I feel like he would, Spider-Man is always trying to save everybody. He tries to save everybody. That's the problem. And it wasn't a big problem. Like I said, it wasn't awful. It was just like, I wanted to see a little bit more. Just a little bit more.
So definitely the action with the drone fighting between Spider-Man and the drones.
I thought that got a little excessive at the end.
It did, but it was probably the best Spider-Man like fight on the big screen.
I will actually give Sam Raimi that one. Yeah, woo! The train scene with Doc Ock. I thought that was pretty good. I liked this one,
but I thought this one was pretty. It
was more creative.
Yeah, well, that with because like Spider-Man built his own suit, kind of thing, so he has certain webs for certain things, and then there was that one part.
He planned ahead with the taser webs, which I liked.
There was that one part where he kind of like he's out of webs, so he has to come up with an idea. And then he just starts building things, scraps, off the ground. And he basically just becomes, like a bomb. And then he has the shield, right? And then this is one of my other favorite parts is like he's learning from other heroes. Yeah. It's not just Iron Man. He's taking everything he's learned from all the Avengers. So you see Thor and Cap in one thing. And you can tell, I don't know if you guys watch My Hero Academia. But one of the great things about a character named Deku, he's the main character. Yes, it's great. Is that he learns from all the heroes around him, and that's how he becomes a better hero. And in this movie, you get to see that in that moment that he's talking about, and it's really cool. Yeah, where he's putting every piece together to become the next Avenger. Yeah. But yeah, I like that creative like fighting style, and it did kind of bring out that Spider-Man feel on the big screen. Oh, yeah. I think that was the most Spider-Man-y fight. But it was good. It was good. Yeah. It was very close to first for me. Like like what these two said, Mysterio's illusion part, where he's like tricking Spider-Man within his illusion, how he sets basically Spider-Man up to give away his friends. To give away his friends and stuff. That whole part when he's like. When they like the visual effects, like when it's revealed that it's visual effects and it just keeps going, I'm all like, I'm in this universe right now. It like is nobody talk to me. Me just don't. I'm in this. Yeah. And I could not pull my eyes away from that screen, even for a second, to like look at your guys' reaction or anything, just because I was just like, this is so great. He works it to a way where he makes Peter stand in front of that train and then gets hit, and I was like. Dang. Yeah, I wasn't expecting the train to come out. Regarding with that fight scene with the drones, it was definitely just a fight scene. It was all just action. I felt like there was no... It was more of a way of moving Spider-Man to get to Mysterio, to get to that whole like confrontation between Mysterio and Spider-Man fight. And it wasn't where like the action was like a story. Kind of like John Wick, where the action kind of just pushed the story along. This one was just the action was there just to make it look cool instead of like having that story.
that's pretty much Spider-Man Homecoming. That's all the spoilers we'll give you guys. Go see the movie. Check out the rest. It's so worth it. Stay tuned. Keep your eyes on the channel because IMDb reviews will be coming.
See you next time.
See you later, guys.